What's up, a Cinema Shogun here, and in my last video, I brought you all a story about Miss Alabama, Zoe Sozo Bethel, who mysteriously fell off a building in Miami and plunged to her death. Now, there's conflicting stories as to what happened. She was actually hanging out with one of her brothers, who says she accidentally fell over the railings, while an eyewitness on the ground says they saw her run and jump. Now, the story really caught my attention because of all the different conflicting stories as to what happened. And because when I started looking into it more, I found out a lot of things about Zoe. For one, she had just lost a lot of opportunities because of her public support of Donald Trump. She was a Miss Alabama. She had a lot of modeling gigs set up, a lot of great opportunities ahead of her, but a lot of those opportunities were yanked away when people realized that she was more of a conservative and that she supported Donald Trump. And when pictures surfaced, or when she posted a picture of her with Donald Trump's son. So she lost a lot of her opportunities as far as modeling goes. But she was somewhat involved in politics. I found out that she was working with Project Veritas. And all of these things started to raise my eyebrow. Because regardless of how you feel about Donald Trump, regardless of how you feel about Project Veritas, I think we all can agree that there's a lot of people who hate Donald Trump. There's a lot of people who hate Project Veritas. Maybe those people would have some type of motive to try to get rid of Zoe. I mean, we do know that they yanked everything away from her. All of her opportunities, all of her gigs, all of her future jobs were just yanked away from her, all because of her support for Donald Trump. Who's to say that someone maybe wouldn't go a little further? I mean, once again, regardless if you like Project Veritas, you like Donald Trump, regardless of how you lean politically, I think we can all agree that Zoe was someone that went against the norm. And maybe people might think that was dangerous. Maybe people might think it's dangerous that we have a young black woman supporting Donald Trump and working alongside Project Veritas, because that goes against a certain narrative. Maybe that's why people viewed her as more dangerous, because they don't want other people seeing that and getting any ideas. Maybe they want the black community to all vote and think one way, because that's the way it seems sometimes these days. But you know, when covering these cases, I have to be very careful, because there's real lives and real people on the other end of these cases. And sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that as a content creator and as a viewer at home. Sometimes it's easy to disassociate yourself from the humans on the other sides of these stories. So often I see stories and they're really suspicious, they're weird, but I try to be reserved and not say much because I want to be as respectful as possible. So reading through this story, obviously, I was just like, man, something's up here. Something's really suspicious here. But I don't want to say too much. But upon further review, it turns out that her own sister is asking some of the same questions that I'm asking. So therefore, I don't necessarily feel like I'm overstepping boundaries here, now that I'm starting to ask more questions about this woman's death. Because the details are shady. All of it sounds weird. If you don't know the details, I would suggest that you go watch my last video. But looking at Zoe and looking at her life and the things that she was into, the things that her family were into, she had a very interesting life, a troubling life, if you will, at some points. And I think the way she was raised is very questionable. And in many ways, some say that she was trying to run away from her past. But let's just go ahead and dive right in so you can get a good idea of what I'm talking about here. To the public, Zoe Sozo Bethel was a beautiful Miss Alabama, a model, and budding conservative commentator who mysteriously fell off a third-story balcony in Miami just before midnight February 10th and died of her injuries a week later. Those who know her say her death was especially tragic because Bethel, who was 27, was overcoming a tortured past in a troubled family that she tried to keep secret. She was the daughter of two fire and brimstone preachers, Orlando and Glennice, who called themselves the Apostle and the Prophetess. They took their kids all over the South and had them participate in protests against homosexuals. They would often have to wear shirts that says God hates gays or God hates whores. Forgive me for the language. Zoe tried to remake herself so no one would know she was the kid from Baldwin County, Alabama, who yelled, "God hates you" to people, her sister Kezia Bethel, 26, said. She was able to keep it a secret on a national level. No one knew who she really was unless she came back to Baldwin County. So, looking at this, I see pictures of her and her sister wearing these shirts, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. You know, sometimes on this channel, sometimes on my other channel, I talk about indoctrinating kids. And as much as I don't like this trans agenda and stuff being pushed on kids in the classroom these days, I also don't like people who use their kids as conduits for their own political agendas and their own social messages. So I definitely don't agree with putting a shirt that says God hates gays on your child and putting them out there in the middle of a protest. I think that is absolutely grotesque. Her friends and family said they want more answers about her death, which Miami police first called an attempted, I can't say that word. At first, her death was labeled that she offed herself, but then it was labeled an accident later on. Bethel was with at least one of her brothers at the time. Kezia, Bethel's ex-husband, and her best friend all said that the beauty queen was definitely not someone who would hurt themselves. And they feel that Miami police have not thoroughly investigated her death, which they think was suspicious. And this is coming from a Miami police spokesperson. And as of right now, the case isn't necessarily closed. So that right there, folks, is why I'm hopping into this story a little bit more. Because her sister, her ex-husband, and her best friend all think something suspicious is going on here. And just from looking at this story for 2 days now, I think so too. And it's not like I've spent, 48 hours looking into this case. I briefly looked into this case before I made a video on it yesterday. And just in the brief time that I stayed and just looked into the case, it seems so extremely odd to me. Because there was different accounts from everyone there. She seemed to be someone who would be against taking her own life. She had a daughter. She had some things going for her. Don't get me wrong. She had a lot of gigs taken away from her, but she still had a bright future ahead of her as well. And she so-called took some type of mystery cannabis substance. I'm not sure about that either. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on here. Zoe's father, Orlando Bethel, now 54, and his late wife, Glennice Bethel, who died of cancer in 2013, were both former small-time models and actors who met in Miami and later moved to Loxley, Alabama, after Zoe and her younger sister Kezia, now 25, and brother Zion, 23, were born. Glennice also had two older sons, including Santiago, from her first marriage. Kezia said her childhood was a nightmare. She said her mother, who can be seen preaching and rebuking others in YouTube videos, had a history of mental illness, often kept her kids at home, and lectured them about the Bible and their laziness, sometimes up to 18 hours a day. So she would have these kids sitting at home lecturing them about how lazy they are and lecturing them about the Bible 18 hours a day. Jesus. Sorry for using the Lord's name in vain, but God. You know, I'm not what you would call a super religious person. I have my beliefs. I was raised going to a Christian church. I have certain beliefs, but like I said, I'm not an extremely religious person, and I'm definitely not the type of person that tries to push my religious views or how I view the world and the universe onto other people. And I think religion can be a really good thing sometimes, but I also think that sometimes it could be an extremely toxic thing. Like, there's no reason why you should be 18 hours a day lecturing your kid on the Bible while rebuking them and telling them that they're bad people. That's when you just become batshit crazy. So I don't like people like that. I don't like that. And like I was stating earlier, I don't like the indoctrination of kids. I believe that kids should be allowed to have a childhood. And I don't think that that should be messed with, even by something like this. Like, geez. Now, because their parents were arrested for disorderly conduct and other charges stemming from their public preaching, Kezia said the children were in and out of foster homes. I went to sleep every night crying, Kezia said. I just wanted my family to be normal. Nothing made any sense. Zoe would fight back the most, and they kicked her out of the house several times. We were scared. So through all of this downright psychological warfare that these parents were waging on their children, Zoe was the one that pushed back the most. And even though she pushed back a lot, it didn't stop her from being a religious person. It didn't stop her from having a relationship with Jesus. At least that's what the family says. But she was just pushing back against this extreme shit that the parents were putting her through. Sometimes their parents would take off with the kids for months at a time to places like Tennessee, Kentucky, and Ohio, where they would preach, often aggressively, according to both Kezia and a number of media reports from the time. Kezia said that they were inspired after watching Westboro Baptist Church videos. Yeah, I'm not even familiar with that church, but it says that they've been accused of all types of things. I don't want to get into that because I don't know how true those accusations are, and that's just a story from another time. In 2010, Zoe and Kezia were pictured in a local news report at a protest by the Westboro Church in New Orleans. Zoe looking downcast, wore a t-shirt reading "God hates you sinners." And her brother wore a t-shirt saying "God hates whores." Whoa. And you see them, pictured here, and I just feel totally bad for them. Why in the hell would you put your kids through this? Look at how Zoe looks. She looks totally defeated here. I know she's probably embarrassed. You name it. I don't care what your beliefs are. Your kids aren't meant to be vessels for your beliefs. Even if your beliefs are the right thing, even if you're preaching something that is right, even if you're spreading the right word, it doesn't mean that you take your kid and you put them on the front lines. No, you fight those battles as an adult so your kids don't have to. You don't use your kids to fight these battles with you. I think this is absolutely disgusting. I feel so bad that kids are put in these positions every day, regardless of what the message is behind it. I don't care. I think it's disgusting. Even though the Bethels owned their home in Loxley, Alabama, they sometimes went to other towns outside Alabama and tried to enroll their kids in local schools, saying they were homeless, according to both local media reports and lawsuits filed by the Bethels. At the same time, they had their kids walk into schools wearing t-shirts with inflammatory slogans and passing out religious material, according to Kezia media reports. Holy shit. So the parents of Zoe would take her and her siblings around to other schools and try to enroll them in those schools, saying they're homeless, what have you, just so they could pop up to school like the next day or later that week in shirts with some type of slogan on it, passing out religious material. That is so sad. The level of trauma I imagine these kids went through, reading through this, it's starting to, as suspicious as this story sounds, reading through this almost makes me feel like, well, damn. Now I know that this woman had to have gone through so damn much. I don't know what she was battling behind the scenes. Because what in the hell are these parents doing to these kids? Her mom was off her rocker, Sarah Kane, who said she was Zoe's best friend since the age of 13, said, Zoe told me she never got the kind of motherly love. My mom did not let me go over there. She was not a fan of Zoe's parents. Zoe's parents would go around calling out girls as whores if they were wearing shorts. And this could be in Alabama in the summer when it was hot. So they would literally just ride around the neighborhood calling little girls whores as they were trying to walk home from their school bus stop because they were wearing shorts. The Southern Poverty Law Center singled out Glennis Bethel in 2011 for being part of a hate group in a report titled, Gay Bashing Prophetess Can't Stay Out of Jail. Oddly, Glennis also took her daughters to Atlanta when they were in their early teens to get them signed with modeling agencies. Kezia said she and Zoe both modeled off and on as teenagers. So, that's weird. Someone who's being so preachy about this and that, yet they're perfectly fine with registering their daughters as models to, I don't know, maybe take advantage of them, maybe get some type of monetary gains from their kids. So while preaching as being holier than thou, they're out here signing their early teenage daughters to modeling agencies, which I'm not saying there's necessarily nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, that is kind of shady. A lot of times there's some shady shit that goes on there when you're signing young girls away or young boys away to these modeling agencies. But to be out here preaching all of this holier than thou bullshit and then go and do that to your daughters, it's like, oh, okay, you're really some hypocrites here. I mean, in the grand scheme of things. Kezia said the Bethels briefly spent time with the Westboro church members at their Topeka, Kansas base, but the Westboro threw them out. My parents were too extreme even for them. Now, this Westboro church, I'm not really familiar with the story. That's why I said I didn't want to get into it. But it was described as being like this super extreme church. And they're saying that Zoe's parents were even more extreme than them, so extreme that they threw them out. The Bethels have filed more than 50 federal lawsuits, mostly in the South, against school districts, police agencies, villages, and cities, alleging their constitutional and civil rights were violated. In 2003, Orlando was arrested in Escambia County, Florida, for protesting without a permit while demonstrating in front of churches with posters inscribed, "Worship God, not your pastor." Okay. I mean, that sign wasn't too bad. He pleaded not guilty and challenged the law in federal court, where he was represented by the uber-conservative Liberty Council and supported by the American Civil Liberties Union. Ultimately, the county agreed to amend the permit ordinance, according to the SPLC. In 2011, police came to Brentwood High School in Tennessee, where Glennis tried to enroll Zoe and Kezia and also have them distribute religious material in the classrooms. Zoe's father, during a phone interview with the Post Wednesday, denied accusations that his children were abused in any way or had a difficult childhood. He admitted that the kids had been placed in foster homes 1 or 2 times, but said it was just when he and his wife were falsely arrested. He said that the family never directly interacted with the Westboro church members, although he acknowledged some of them came to Florida to support his legal tussle with the county. He also said his late wife was not mentally ill. So he says a lot of things here. He uses a lot of words that I'm not supposed to use here on this platform. But he's basically saying that nothing wrong happened to his kids. That he raised his kids right. And that they were loved and cherished, and that they still are. And that they were raised under fundamental Christian beliefs. Zoe was a treasure, a gem. Just like all of her other siblings, he added. Zoe was at the precipice of being able to show the world all she had to offer. Bethel, who left home at 16, forged a successful career as a model while also pursuing conservative politics, including trips to the Trump White House, an affiliation with Turning Point USA, a participation in a Young Black Leaders Summit. In 2018, she was fired by the Ursula Wiedemann modeling agency in Atlanta after they got wind of her right-wing beliefs. So as I was telling you all earlier, she was fired because of her beliefs, and not just that, a lot of the opportunities that she had laid out before her were taken away, all because she supported Donald Trump. Hey Zoe, Wiedemann wrote her in an email, the team has been talking about your political, racist connections, and we have decided to release you from your contract. We are an agency based on love, acceptance, and inclusiveness. And your current public persona is not relative to our brand. Best luck to you. So, you see, isn't that funny, folks? Just because she had a difference in a political opinion, they deemed her as racist. She's black. And that's not saying that black people can't be racist. But they're trying to say just because she didn't vote for Democrats and she wasn't on the left, that she's racist towards black people. And that's why she was fired. She was fired for her political racist connections because she supported Donald Trump. And in doing that, she was deemed as being a racist. So what we have here is an establishment ran by a bunch of woke white people who fired a young, intelligent black woman, citing that she is racist, all because she didn't go with the mainstream narrative. So I think we see who's the real racist here, who the real bigots are. It's funny how when you don't go along with the mainstream narrative, they no longer care about uplifting black voices. You know, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of talk about uplifting black voices and creating equal opportunities for black people and minorities. Yet here, they didn't want her to have that opportunity because she didn't think the right way. So it goes to show you, they don't really care about you at all. I can promise you that. But Zoe kept going. She won Miss Alabama for America in 2021 and started working towards a career in show business and broadcast journalism. She had separated from her husband, Brendan Franklin, who looked after their 5-year-old daughter at their home in Alabama. Zoe was in Miami to network at the time of her death. Zoe's half-brother, Santiago, said he and his sister had dinner out that night before she died. He said she had taken some type of drug to relax. When they got home, she took a shower, went out to the hallway, began pacing back and forth erratically while on the phone with another one of her brothers. She then ran down the hallway and jumped off the balcony. But Kezia, Zoe's sister, said Santiago and Zion told her and others different and conflicting stories about Zoe's death. So here we have Zoe's own sister. I want you all at home to realize this, because for some reason when people watch YouTube videos, they automatically like think they shoot the messenger, if you will. This isn't me saying this. This is Zoe's own sister. And she says that Santiago and Zion, which are both Zoe's half-brothers, that they gave her conflicting stories about what happened. And that their stories weren't the same as the stories they told the police. Now, I don't know about you all, but I'm going to believe the sister. There's something about sisters. They have this connection to each other. Maybe not all sisters, but I have found in life that sometimes these sisters just have these connections with each other. Tighter connections than brothers usually have. And women have a certain intuition about them. I don't know what it is, but I believe the sister. What does she have to lie about? Mind you, one of the brothers or half-brothers was with her when this happened. Kezia says that she does not know what happened and does not believe Zoe's death was deliberate, but may stem from some turmoil within the family. So there was a lot of turmoil within this family. There was a lot of issues within this family. I just gave y'all some insight about her upbringing. There was some animosity there. You know, this wasn't a tight-knit, normal family. This was a family that had their kids wearing crazy-ass t-shirts and protesting for them since they were 4 and 5 years old. I think that there was some kind of dispute between them, Zoe and her brothers, but the police did not really look into it or talk to possible witnesses, Kezia said. We all have a hidden type of anger in us. It comes from a deep spot because of how we were raised. We didn't have love. When that anger comes out, you cannot tell us anything. We are extreme. There's nothing that can pull us back from it. No one around you can say, calm down. We are truly Glenice's children. Now, they tried to reach out to the brother that was with her, Santiago, that was with her during this time, and he refused to make a comment. He refused to make a comment. And his own sister is basically saying that I think there was a dispute between her and him, and it ultimately resulted in her death. And she's saying that the police didn't put no time into the investigation, and they really just didn't care. When you have someone that's in your own family making that extreme of an allegation, I think we got to look into it. She knows that family dynamic better than anyone. And for her to automatically, oh, I think it could have been my half-brother, then damn it, I think we need to start asking some questions. Because I find it weird. This whole story's weird, and I think he knows something else. I'm not saying he pushed her off the building. I don't know what happened. I think he knows something else. She loved her life. She loved her daughter. She was at the pinnacle of her potential. This is what Santiago was saying on one of his social media posts. So he refuses to make a comment, but on social media, he's talking about how much she loved her life and that she was just right at the pinnacle of her potential in life. And then he launched a GoFundMe asking for $500,000 in donations to cover up Zoe's hospital expenses and to help support her daughter. But when he was asked about the circumstances surrounding Zoe's death, he hung up the phone. So in other words, these journalists, when they saw his social media posts and they saw that he was raising money for her death, they reached out to him to talk to him about this fundraiser. But then they, turned around and started asking him some more harder questions about the details surrounding her death, and he hung up the phone. And the other brother refuses to answer the phone, period. He won't talk to anyone. Now, you could go back and watch my original video if you want to know the whole story about it. But basically, she was hanging out with one of her half-brothers, Santiago. She was at his apartment, I believe. But she was on the phone with another one of her brothers. So while her sister is saying that she thinks that maybe there was a dispute between Zoe and her brothers are refusing to comment on the situation anymore. You put two and two together, folks. So Kezia said that she is afraid of her father, and only went public because she wants people to know the truth about her sister's death and for people to know who Zoe truly was. She wanted to make something of herself. We didn't have the kind of parents who said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" We had to figure it out on our own. I wanted to bury everything that happened and to forget about it because of what happened to Zoe. I can't. I'm sorry, it's extremely, it's difficult reading through this because I feel this woman's pain. And seeing what they went through as a child, like, I know it's taken a lot of strength for Kezia, Zoe's sister, to speak up and say all of this. But from what she was trying to say, she still to this day is extremely afraid of her father. And she was afraid of talking about her suspicions because of her father and because of her family. She, from what it looks like, has distanced herself away from the family. She, like she said it in her last statement, she tried to bury her whole childhood. She tried to bury it in the deep, dark depths of her mind. She doesn't even want to think about that shit. And the only reason that she's having to resurface all of these memories is because her sister just passed away. But she thinks something is weird here. The fact that she's scared to speak out about these suspicions because of her father makes me wonder about her father. It makes me wonder what type of control her father had over her brothers still, or her half-brothers. I don't know. It really makes me question things here. Because maybe someone this radical and someone this weird and crazy in their beliefs, if you're their offspring and you're not representing them in the way that they want to be represented, who knows what they might do? Who knows what they might... I'm just saying, if someone is in the mental space that they will dress their kid up in a shirt, like the shirts that he was having them wearing, talking about God hates whores and gays, and you would take them to random schools and make them walk around to other kids' classrooms and pass out pamphlets, then you're not in the right mental space. So maybe you would want your daughter knocked off. Maybe you would be extremely upset that your daughter was making a name for herself and maybe she was wearing dresses. Maybe she wasn't representing herself in the way he wanted her to be represented. This family would go around to bus stops and call little girls whores who wore shorts to school. I don't put nothing past these people. The fact that Kezia seems to be so afraid to even speak about this when this is her own family shows you that she has a legit reason to be afraid. No one should be that afraid of their own family. You know, the type of psychological things that they went through, it just blows my mind. And I'm glad that she had the strength to speak up. And I wish that this story got bigger. I wish that more people knew about this. I wish more people were asking questions about this for Kezia. For Kezia. Because maybe she's afraid of her father. Maybe she's afraid of her family. I'm not. I'm not afraid of her father. I'll say this looks suspicious all day. Because he doesn't have any psychological control over me. But a lot of these people who've been mentally conditioned this way, they're extremely afraid to speak out. They're extremely afraid to say anything. And if something like this happens to your sister and the thought even crosses your mind that your brother could have done it, I think that's an extreme red flag as to what this family is really like and what could have really happened here. Because the stories sound bogus. This illegal substance, I don't believe that cannabis makes anyone throw themselves off a building. I'm not sure what happened here. We probably will never know what happened here. Maybe it was just an accident. But even her own sister thinks that there's something wrong. Her ex-husband thinks something is wrong. Her best friend thinks something's wrong. And these are all the people who were closest to her. Closer to her than her crazy-ass family. So, me on the outside looking in, who already had my own suspicions, and I see that the people closest to her have their own suspicions, then, I mean, what else can we do here? I think we really have to start asking questions about what really went down here. I think people need to start following their gut feeling a little bit more in life. But I want to know your thoughts about all of this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. And as always, find some time out of your day to go watch a movie.